nature is free therapy, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Just go outside, unplug, and be present.
Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I am Eric Guy, the Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. Once again, you ought to know my partner in crime here, Mr. Kolb, our Chief Adventure Officer. We're going to get into a topic today that's more up your alley. So I want to set the scene. We've done some research on this, and this is one of the reasons I don't want to give too much away, but one of the reasons some of our adventures are kind of scheduled how they are, right? And put together how they are. So welcome back. We're going to be talking about the 3-day effect and why that matters, right? The 3-day effect, meaning in nature. So remind listeners of what you do and why this would be important to you. So in your role. Yeah.
So my role, here at Center for Victory, I'm the Chief Adventure Officer. So I do two main things. One is plan the adventures that we go on and coordinate. I would say I'm a type 1, type 2 fun mechanic on finding the right balance between, that is challenging enough, but that clients succeed, they get through that. And then I'm also a consultant for Center for Victory as well, working with clients. And so why I'm excited about this is because I've experienced this before I knew what it was.
Right.
And it wasn't really till you gave me the book, The Comfort Crisis, and I read that, and we started talking about this is there's a lot of research to this. And I'm a nerd when it comes to research, the 3-day effect. I remember when we started talking about grounding, and I said, I'm like, dude, have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Just taking your shoes off and going, look at all this research. And so anyway, I think I'm excited about it because I've experienced it and before I knew what it was. And so I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, and our minds came together on the side of human performance and adventure, right, and being out in nature because you saw the potential for it. I saw the potential for it. I wanted to get back out. I wanted to get back out. You were the resource for that. And then, we talked about it. We kind of hem-hawed around it. I wish we would have acted a little bit sooner on it and things. But when we were coming back from doing a trip to Fuji, it was that's when
we need to do this more. Yeah.
We have to do this. This is something that people need. This is something that people deserve. This is something that can bring families back together. This is something that can bring relationships back together, companies back together. And we've seen that. We've seen it all happen. We've experienced it. We've been part of that. And that's, basically it's how we get clarity and get to be creative with some of the things that we do.
And it's like the most simple thing that you can do. It's not, you don't need to go purchase anything. You don't need to, there's not a massive medical, but you go outside, you unplug, you get a digital detox, and so I'm all for this.
Have you always, I know the answer to this, but so people know, have you always been one to be outside doing something?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing growing up, I learned a lot from my dad. We used to go on backpacking trips every year. So we do go back and forth between Colorado and Montana. And so I learned a lot about just kind of getting through adversity and challenging situations. I've told that story before where I wanted to turn around. Everybody else had turned around, and my dad was like, if you do this, you're going to remember this for the rest of your life. And I still share that with people today because I do, and it's very impactful. So I think at a young age, I knew, I wanted to do something outdoors, but, when it really hit me was, I was guiding Kilimanjaro. It was day 4. We were going from Shira Camp, to the Barranco Wall. And so we'd gone through the rainforest. You go through the moorland zone, and then you kind of pop out, and then now we're above the clouds. and I was running sweep that day. So I'm like maybe 10 yards, 15 yards behind the last person. I'm just kind of like walking by myself. And it was like being on a beach, but instead of the waves coming in, it was clouds. And I was like, I want to do more of this. Like, I want to make this part of my job. And it was just so peaceful and quiet. Like, you could hear the wind, and it was like, that was it. And it just felt just so much joy and so much peace in that moment. And then so now I kind of chase that feeling, you know, and I think it's one of those things where on any of these trips, you know, when you're unplugged, it's like there's so many things that are coming into your brain space, like back here, you know, text messages, phone calls, emails, you have these deadlines. And so, you know, when you finally take that time to unplug for yourself, it's like, all right, none of that stuff matters right now. And that's really where I feel like I get the most clarity.
Yeah. So let's dive into this and understand the 3-day effect. I'll try not to chime in because, you know, I like the research behind it. You know, and obviously when I found it, it was very validating to me and what we had already, you know, were doing, and why the 3-day effect, why 72 hours in nature creates noticeable mental and psychological changes in people. I know it was popularized by a neuroscience,
David Strayer,
David Strayer, University of Utah, who researched how immersion in nature affects our brains, right? This study showed that 3 consecutive days in wilderness, and this is without digital devices, leads to profound cognitive benefits. What are those benefits?
Well, the biggest one I know from that study was that participants scored like a 50% higher score on like creative problem solving, like 50%, right? But there's a lot of other things as far as like improved sleep, reduced cortisol levels. I know that I was reading some things about like in the prefrontal cortex where like depression is housed, like it lowers, is it the alpha waves? Is that the alpha waves in there, like kind of resets? So there's just so much benefit to doing this, and that's kind of goes back to where like, yeah, I thought there was something here, but you know, I didn't know what it was. I thought I just felt good when I was outside and I wanted to do more. But now when you go through, I mean, golly, do you want to go through kind of all this research?
Yeah. I mean, you know, just to unpack that creativity piece, which when you said that, I wasn't thinking about this, but then I remember the first time we were in Glacier and we came back and we set up the cameras on that back deck and actually did our first outdoor podcast.
Yeah. Yep.
And like, I don't know if that just sparked from that. Like, I wouldn't be one to be like, yeah, I want to do this because there's all those variables in the sun and the shade and that, but it was good. Like, I would say, especially for me, it was very creative.
Yeah.
But I do, you know, when you get out there, and I think there's more to it than just the 72 hours. Obviously, when you're with people that you deeply care about.
Yep. Yeah, I think having a goal like set, you know, kind of challenging yourself physically. I think you definitely would experience this if you're just, you know, you just backpack into a place and make a base camp and you do that. I think absolutely you'd still have the same effect, but I think there's even more when there's like a challenge associated with it and getting through that challenge. And that's why we do a lot of these, like the tough things, because I think that's really, you know, just goes another level deeper of like rewiring your brain.
Well, and I think we've taken it for granted too. Like what this study, when I started getting into it, I'm like, man, we are taking, because we go out a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, then you compare that to the general population.
Right.
It's a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then, you know, our office is in the woods. I mean, technically.
We have lunch breaks outside. And that was kind of one of the little takeaways kind of at the end of things people can do just to, you know, okay, I can't, Caleb, I can't take 3 days, 72. I can't do this. But, well, there's other things you can do that are still beneficial. But,
yeah, let's get into some of this. Where do you want to start?
Well, I will go back to the alpha waves because I have to correct myself here. So this is just some research that I was doing before this. Alpha brain waves are patterns of electrical activity in the brain measured by EEG. and they cycle at around 8 to 12 hertz. And they're typically seen when you're awake but relaxed, calm and alert, common in states of quietness, restfulness, meditation, when your eyes are closed but you're not asleep. And they're less common during intense focus or stress, which produces beta waves. Yep. So alpha activity is associated with reduced stress and anxiety. It signals a shift from the fight or flight to rest and digest in your nervous system. And so high alpha activity often links with improved mood and mental clarity. And so that's what this study shows, is that the alpha brainwaves actually increase in nature and increase in that.
Well, that too, in your whole system, it goes from, our traditional, what we know about the amygdala, fight or flight, to the brain, actually that rest and digest. We don't give ourselves the time to do that, to really rest and get into kind of that place where we're just let our brains just, because we're always bombarded. I mean, I think some people think that they're resting when they're on their phones at night and they're just thumbing through things.
Doom scrolling,
Yeah, but they're not. Your brain's still on alert. And when you take that out of there, and hey, look, guys, I'm not by any means a perfectionist at this, because I mean I've scrolled just like the rest of everybody, but I know when I put that thing down, and I always think, again, I'm using the glacier analogy, because once you get the AppGuard, it doesn't matter.
Your phone's not working anyway.
Nowhere.
I mean?
Yeah. You can look at it all you want, but I think that was the nice thing about even going there, because after a couple of days, it just, well, after the first day, really, it just kind of signaled like, okay, put it away. We'll deal with this when we come back.
Absolutely. And you don't have a choice at that point. And that's where, like, I remember the first year when we went out to Glacier, like, I had so much going on, and like, I was so stressed. I'm like, dude, I don't know if now's like if now's the time for me to step away from all of these things. I've got a lot going on, but I remember like being out there and just getting that clarity of like, yes, this is exactly what I needed, and was able to kind of formulate a plan and talked with you a lot. And, just I was so much better off taking that time for myself and going out and doing that, I'm very grateful that I listened to myself then and didn't say, okay, well, no, now's not the time, I'll just put this off. And I think that's what a lot of people deal with, especially busy business owners. I mean, everybody that you come in contact with is a business owner. They're all busy. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is like, a lot of people there that are so invested in that work, their health is struggling, their home life is struggling, their relationships are struggling. There's so many of these other things. Their business might be doing great, but so many other things are suffering from that. So,
well, yeah, and again, going back to doing it together, now we've had these adventures where we've had couples go, we've had kids go with their parents, which is really cool. Right. I think of one young lady who just got the bug too. I mean, it'll probably stick with her, and I'm excited for her because I really like her too. But I mean, she and her dad, have done the canyon a couple of times together, and she definitely has that bug. And I don't know, she probably doesn't know all this, but I would say, as I watch younger people do it, that they just get it naturally. They know that they like, because I've watched them. They're really, believe it or not, right? They're not on picking up their phones or anything like that. It's like sometimes it's us, the adults, that are into that. But come back to the creativity piece, because there was in that study. He found that people scored 50% higher in creative problem solving after 3 days immersed in nature. You've experienced that, right? You talked about it with Glacier, but I think there's other things, but it was just very prominent with Glacier. If you would have forgone not going out,
right?
How do you think what would have done?
I would have been here at the office in front of my computer, pulling my hair out, not sleeping at night, like not eating healthy. I mean, it was just like we don't give ourselves the time to like I'm just speaking for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't, it's hard. That's why we try to schedule something
Yeah.
like, all right, it's like 8 weeks. It's like time to go get the pack on again and do something, because I think we just go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And then a lot of times we have multiple things going on at the same time. So being able to like just unplug, right? So we have, 3 days here, 5 days here. I don't have service anyway, like, and I have to be able to unplug from that, kind of being able to talk with you and say, here's everything that I'm dealing with, and just like sleep on that. And one of the other things, and I know this for a fact, shout out to Garmin, but the sleep scores, like my sleep score when I'm like out doing a backpacking trip is better than at home. Like if Sarah and I go on a trip and I sleep better in my tent than I do at home. And I don't know if it's because I'm not scrolling or what, but your circadian rhythm, I know there's research that says your circadian rhythm resets during that time as well. So you're sleeping better, you're cognitively functioning better. And I think that's what contributes to that creativity improvement of like, which is exactly what we did. It's like, all right, I got to find a way to, keep this business going and keep it, and it has. And so I attribute a lot of that to just being able to unplug and take a step back and be out in God's creation and be grateful for that opportunity,
Yeah, and you talked about the health. I mean, they also noted a 20% drop in heart rate and blood pressure. Yeah. I don't like the term that they use for it, nature bathing or forest bathing.
Yeah, forest bathing. Yeah.
But what is it, the Japanese term, Shinryu-yuku?
Yeah.
But it shows measurable reductions in heart rate, blood pressure after 2 or more days in nature. And again, like, this is research. I'm sure somebody's going to come back and say, well, this or that.
100%.
Like, this is what we do. We see it firsthand, right? We see people get calmed down. I mean, it goes into the cortisol too, that reduction in cortisol. And I can imagine, bringing somebody, we've seen people from the city and they come out and they're just wired, like wired.
Yep.
And I know that has to be going on in their head, because after a couple of days, and I will say, like, we're not hounding people's phones. So when we come back, at night, people are still on their electronics. This study was actually done for over a period of 3 days with complete digital detox. But even the benefits of that, just coming back after a day, but the consecutive days, this is why we set it up with our trips to Glacier and Zion. This is why we did the 3 days, because it's 3 days out in nature. You can choose to come back to the hotel, right, and turn your phone back on, your electronics back on. You don't have to. We encourage you not to. But if you want to get a glimpse, you want to call home, tell them everybody's okay. You didn't get eaten by a bear. You weren't a bear snack. That's good. But there's definitely benefits to it. What else am I missing?
So one of the things, because I had to look this up, was it was talking about essentially that nature doesn't just make us feel better; it actually quiets the part of our brain that gets stuck in these negative loops, and so that's called rumination.
Rumination, right? Yes, which is huge with people. A lot of people that we talk to, the leaders that I coach.
And that's like I work at a nonprofit, and we work with a lot of veterans and first responders, and the one common denominator is they're living with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress. And so essentially what rumination is, it's the repetitively, passively focusing on negative thoughts, like beating yourself up over the past or worrying about the future, just in loops. And that's strongly related to depression and anxiety, and it keeps the stress response active and prevents that mental recovery. And so what this study found is that, when you do this, when you go out in nature, and this study was a Stanford study. You didn't even have to be out for 3 days. This was just being out in nature, kind of that forest bathing that you were talking about. But participants of the study who took time to go out in nature had lower self-reported rumination and reduced neural activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is tied to the depressive rumination. So, I mean, like, and that's what I feel. I know we've been talking about this a lot. Like, I've been, especially now, like, this is kind of one of my favorite times of the year because it doesn't get dark until like 9 p.m. So, you have time. You can go get up, when you get off work. I live 3 minutes from a great trail. Like, I can take the dogs out, and I go by myself, and I do it at least once or twice during the week. I just feel better when I do that. So,
well, let's get into. I've got all kind of questions for you too.
All right.
So the benefits of disconnecting. We talked about cognitive, emotional, physical benefits of immersing yourself in nature. I'm going to ask you for some examples of what you noticed. So what kind of changes have you noticed in yourselves and others after spending a few days outdoors?
Well, let's go. I talked about myself a lot, but I'll talk about others, because one of the trips that we do, I've done this. I think I went on a trip. This was a church trip that a local church here was trying to start a men's backpacking ministry, and they wanted to model it after another church, and so they were like, "Hey, would you go on this trip and get the takeaways to be able to bring it back here?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And so one of the things that church said is no phones. Like, you leave your phone. Like, we had, satcoms, we had walkie-talkie. Like, we have communication and everything. But, leave your phone in your center console of your car. Leave your watch in the center console of your car. And that was, like, really something I did not want to do. Like, I was just there to get the beta to put together a trip. And so I was like, I'd like to have my phone and be able to calculate all this stuff during the evening time. But I was like, all right, I want to be fully immersed in this. And it was such a good experience. I mean, and so that trip specifically is, you're in a group with like 10 to 15 other guys. And it's a 4-day trip. And each night, you have these campfires and there's different discussion topics. And, it's just crazy to see how much people open up and how much everybody's dealing with something. Everybody's dealing with something. We act like, oh, no, we got it all figured out. Like, I don't have it figured out. I know that this helps. And if if somebody hears this and tries it and it helps them, great. That's what I'm doing it for. But what I've noticed from that trip specifically is how those guys, when you go from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 to day 4, by the end of day 4, like, you get back to the parking lot, everybody's exchanging numbers, adding their friends, like, they're staying in touch because you've shared so much with those people that I don't think you would do that otherwise. If it was like, all right, we're going on this backpacking trip, everybody's kind of on their phone at the fight. Like, it's just, you're completely digitally detoxed, and you're kind of forced to be in this kind of the vulnerable state, I guess, that you're not used to, right? And then you're sharing, you're hearing, you're offering advice, and just how that really bonds, like you were talking about bonding. And so I think that's, like, just going back to, that's important to do this with other people. I mean, I'm sure you'd get this by yourself as well, but I just feel like doing it with others. But I've seen, not only opening up one-on-one, being more vulnerable, sharing things, getting feedback on things, but just feeling better, being excited. I mean, even every trip we've done, it seems like it rains, but guys are excited. They're stoked to be there. They're stoked to do the challenge. They're stoked to completing the challenge. The best thing I love is after the trip, we all go and get something to eat together. We go to the same restaurant. And so, like, the story, we just finished and it's already telling stories about night 1, night 2, night 3. And I just think that's such, like, an impactful experience. And so, I took that, and then I led it 2 more times, put together 2 of my own trips and led them down in Dolly Sods. We put one together down in Virginia on the AT. And, so I just, you get so much feedback that, the guys that we took the first time, all of the leaders on the second trip were guys that went the first time. Like, it was so impactful to them. Does that answer?
It does, yeah. I mean, I'm just to give people examples. I mean, the decision-making, mental clarity. Like, have you seen that? Like, I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, for me, that's where I go to figure out like our business strategy is like I gotta unplug, because I feel like definitely I have more mental clarity. Now, I will tell you, sometimes when you get above 10,000 feet, your decision, 15, 20,000 feet, your decision making goes a little bit lower, but that's unrelated. That's more of an altitude and oxygen thing. Yeah.
But getting into that, like, there is a lot of mental clarity, and I think it's really good. And I think over the years, if somebody asks me my strategy, I mean, that's it, whether we're just taking a walk or, and I know, I realize that we are fortunate. We live in nature. Right. So there's benefit to that. But, having that mental clarity, getting out, and, there are some people that live near us that never get out. And that's unfortunate.
And I think part of that is you just got to commit to doing it, because it's funny, when we go to Montana every year, I have buddies that live in Whitefish, like arguably the best national park in the country.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I went to the park a couple years ago. I'll have to come next year when we'll have to go out to the park with you. It's like, bro, you live right here. I would be living out there. But
yeah.
I think it's just you gotta commit to doing that, man. And one other thing, just back to what you were saying about the clarity, and I noticed this when I was in Nepal. It's kind of the same thing. I think it just, I don't know if these things kind of like you're dealing with a lot, and that just kind of sometimes correlates with when you're leaving for a trip. You're trying to get all these things done. But I remember I was climbing a mountain in the Himalayas, and you hike from town to town. There's no cars. There's yaks and helicopters, and helicopters are expensive. So you're hiking from town to town, and we'd pass these towns, or these little kind of villages, and the women there, they're collecting yak, like
dung,
yep, drying it out on the front yard, and then using it to start fires, right? And so when I remember climbing and just like having this like moment of clarity, like, why am I so stressed out about this email that I got back home? Like, I'm ruminating on this thought. I'm beating myself up over stuff. It's like, there's people, like, these people are taking yak dung, drying it out to heat their homes. Like, I'm, when you're just, and I'm, at that point, I'm just kind of focused on breathing and trying to put one foot in front of the other. And I think it just really gives you a lot of clarity of like, that stuff doesn't matter. Like, I don't like doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. Came home and I'm all right, I'm moving on. I have other opportunities. I'm moving on. And I think when you don't have that opportunity to just step back and get the clarity, you just keep going through that cycle. Oh, I don't know. Why do I deal with this? Why do I just like?
So. Yeah. And remember, folks. So some of the stories we maybe shared too. When we go out during these 3 days and a lot of our adventures, we do some personal, professional development, some human performance stuff, and that, because it relates to the next question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. So we get that clarity now. We have a better place to process it. And
you're at a good baseline, good foundation.
And we've had some great breakthroughs, especially in the last day. Oh my goodness, right? So,
yeah, 100%.
What breakthrough do you remember from somebody?
Well, I mean, it was like it was. You were talking about Glacier.
Whatever, yeah. So it doesn't matter.
And I'll say this: I don't think I was surprised. You know what I mean? Like, we kind of designed it. We designed this trip this way, right? We wanted to have 3 days. We wanted to do iconic hikes. We wanted to challenge people. But then also, one of the things that I'm really excited about that you add to the algorithm or whatever is the personal professional development, and understanding yourself with your, like a behavioral assessment, your attributes index, your values index, understanding those things about yourself, helping you become more self-aware. And then how does that relate to your spouse or your coworkers or whoever else is on this, even the other people on your team. And so that's like one of the things, I mean, when we were on our, you see people that come from completely different backgrounds, completely different lifestyles, that are all experiencing the same thing and becoming friends and staying in touch and, planning the next things together because they've all experienced this. That's the benefit, together, and they've all experienced it at the same time. And so, I think that's one of the coolest things is being able to add. That's why I really, I love all the trips, but that Glacier trip and the Zion trip are so unique because it's really combining the best of like the physical kind of challenge, being out in beautiful places in nature, but then also, the self-awareness piece and the professional development piece. And I think that's kind of a very powerful combination of like, here's things I need to work on. I recognize I need to work on it. I have time now to reflect on it. I'm with people that I love that I can share these things with. I'm getting, actually like research back, feedback on like my, behavioral assessment, what I value, what's important to me, and getting the clarity around that so that when I
you
leave,
have time to have the clarity.
Exactly. That, I mean, it's built in, so when now I leave, all right, well, I've got a plan, and that's where a lot of these things I think have kind of taken hold for me is like, I used to not, now planning out our year is like a big thing. It's just planning out the year, planning out the month, and having the time together with my wife in the morning that we weren't doing before. And a lot of that just comes from being able to take a step back and be like, what's important? This email that I'm beating myself up with is not important. I need to remove that from my life and focus on what is. So.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a breakthrough that you could share?
Here's one from the canyon, just off the top of my head. There was a guy that I didn't think he liked me when we first started hiking so I met him through Center for Victory. He was a client of ours. And so I was like, I heard you're coming on the canyon. He's like, yeah, like very short. And I'm like, okay, like I'm socially aware enough to say, all right, maybe he doesn't want to be friends, and he had struggled with some knee pain and things like that. And got through the canyon, and the first night we were eating dinner back at the hotel, and it just completely like opened up to me. And one of the things that he said is, what I realized during hiking the canyon was that I always had a safety net growing up. Like,
oh yeah, that's right.
I never really, I knew that I could, if I messed up, like there was always my parents or what have you, like that I had a safety net. And doing, the Grand Canyon for him was the first time where it's like, he's dealing with some knee pain and realized like there is no safety net, and, taking kind of that accountability and using that as, kind of his decision-making moving forward, which I think he wouldn't have got if he didn't have that 21 hours or whatever it was to, find that clarity and kind of reflect on that. I mean, golly, there's so many of those. I mean, I could pull those out all day. I think one of the other things that's important, and I don't want to go too off topic here, but is like writing your why down. And that's one of the things that I think is kind of unique when we do kind of these bigger, harder trips that I ask clients to do is like, on a note card, write why you're doing this. Like, why do you want to do Cactus to Clouds? Why do you want to do Grand Canyon Rim to Rim? Why do you want to climb this mountain? Because when it gets hard, it's really nice to have that. And if they're comfortable sharing with me, like I'd love them to share that with me so we can talk through it, like as things get hard. And there's so many times, and a lot of people, they do it for, a lot of the guys that I guide, they do it for their kids. They want their kids to see that they can do hard things and look up to them and be proud of them. And so, that's one I get a lot is like why people are doing those things is really to show their kids that, prove to themselves and prove to their kids that they can do it.
That's It's good stuff. Lot happens there when you're in that environment. Immerse yourself.
Yep.
You know, have that clarity. Get regulated. That's what the terms I would use.
Yeah,
and then,
being regulated.
and
Yep,
then connect
exactly.
To other people and to yourself. I mean, it really you either know your why going in and it reinforces it, or you get to know it and it gets reinforced and validated more. But this is a question we get all the time from the people, especially the people that we run into, is because they're leaders, their moms and dads, you know, oh, I can't do that. Like, how could I possibly integrate that into my life, Caleb and Erica? So what advice would you give somebody who can't maybe take, or doesn't think yet? That's how I should say it. Doesn't think they could take that 3 days off, but still want some of the benefit.
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to that Stanford study about the less time. But one of the things I'd say is like, nature is free therapy, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Just go outside, unplug, and be present. And that is what's hard for me, is to just, one of our board members during that time said, be where your feet are. Like, don't you turn your foot, be where your feet are. And so to just be present is the cheapest, most effective reset I think you can find. And so not everyone can take 3 days off, but, you know, even these short, like, micro doses of nature can help. So,
well, and it's one of the reasons we, you know, especially if you're around the area in Pittsburgh, this is one of the reasons we schedule 2, 3, or 4 a month.
Right. If you're listening to this and you need something to do on a Saturday morning, every Saturday, if one of us is in town, we're doing a hike at 7:30 in the morning. Yeah. And I look forward to it. You know what I mean? Like, I look, you know, how many times have we had an event Friday night and we're like, oh, well, better get to head on out of here. We got an early hike in the morning, because, like, I want to do that. I look forward to that. I look forward to getting breakfast after the hike and talking about the hike. And I mean, I'm just even thinking about, like, your family. Like, you had Josiah and Faith.
And that was, they came out.
On
that
the
was
16,
really nice.
On the 16 miler.
The day before Father's Day. So that was a bonus.
Yeah,
right?
It was Faith's longest hike ever. I even ran a little bit of it with Josiah, which I never thought I would be doing. But, you know, just small goals.
And they enjoyed it. Like, they genuinely enjoyed it. I mean, and I think for the other professionals that say, like, we had, you know, I was talking to we were with some older folks over the weekend, and, you know, the questions were like, well, you know, I'm too old for this, or I don't, you know, have this or that. No, you can still do it. I mean, you might not be able to do
100%,
right, a Cactus to Clouds or, you know, a Grand Canyon, but there are ways that you can do some of the Grand Canyon and see it. But you can also get out and be with your family and do things. I mean, even the private trips that we've done, like, just to get out and be with your family. Yep. Right.
And that's, I think, one of the things that's so, like, whether it's with us or by themselves, like, just start somewhere, you know, even if it's just like a you know, weekend camping trip somewhere. Like, my brother and his family do that. But one of the things that we do, and I think we're really good at, kind of like almost our niche market, is these, like, kind of custom trips for teams, where we really dive into, like, all right, what is your goal of this with your team or family beforehand?
Yeah, so that's my next question. So let me ask it, and then you can go. So how can leaders use the outdoors to create stronger, more connected teams?
Yeah, well, I think number one, these trips, they build trust in your team. They build friendship, camaraderie. You kind of take off the corporate mask of, like, you know, having to wear a tie every day to, like, now you're backpacking, and it's you know, kind of the imperfect beauty. Like, it might rain, it might be cold, it might, you know, be dirty, and it's like, it's just raw, it's authentic. And so I think that's one thing. And I think that's, like, the Grand Canyon is really good for that, as far as, like, changing people in one day, you know, a 1 day trip to do that. I think what we're really good at is tying, you know, the outdoors and a challenge in with, like, the company or team's goal, right? With, okay, I want to decrease or I want to increase retention rate, decrease turnover. I want to get my teams bought in. I want to build trust and friendship. But I don't want us to just be coworkers talking about our weekend at the water cooler. Like, I want to build a family. And, you know, you hear that all the time. Oh, we're a family here. We're a family here. And it's interesting. You see when these companies that do this, how connected they get just over that 3-day period that they wouldn't get elsewhere. And
well, think about the things that we've talked about in every time we've gone out, like whatever adventure it's been for us. Like, there are just things that come up, never would have come up in just general conversation. I would have never wrote it down and say, hey, look, I need to talk to Caleb about this.
Right.
Like, it would have never,
Yep.
like, and it just comes out, and, you know, you get out there and you're suffering together. I think, you know, when the three of us, you know, you, Sarah, and myself, when we went to Cactus to Clouds, I mean, that was hard for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
And I think pushing one another, that's what got us to the top.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have done it on my own. Like,
right. And having your why, like my why to finish it was because it was your Musogi.
Yeah.
Like, if it was just me, I'd be like, all right, well, nobody's going to do this trip, so I'm going to go take the tram down, go get a nice dinner, get some ice cream, like relax by the pool. You know, it's like, what's your why? And, you know, my why that trip was, I knew, like, this was your Musogi for the year, and I wanted to be there to support you, you know, and
but the trust that happens, like the even the back and forth and the communication, and again, it can always get better, but that bond that you have, I mean, you can't, there's something, trust is big for me.
Yeah.
Right. They're very, you know, whether you could say I have problems or whatever, like, there are very few people that I will tell you I trust you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and my wife will tell you that, because I trust her with things, and that's what makes our relationship so great. But when you let down all those guards and you're just yourself, and you can go out there with people who are going to support you in that, you then realize, like, okay, they're in the same situation for me. I'm going to reciprocate
100%
back this relationship. They're giving it back. They've seen me at my absolute worst.
Yep.
Right. Because when you have to, hey, Caleb, like,
it's
I
raw.
I gotta find a tree because like I ate something bad, and like
it's
where am I gonna go?
Dude, it is raw, man. And
or I'm crying, or I'm like, I would have, if I would have fell like I fell at Cactus to Clouds in front of probably anybody else, I would have been totally embarrassed.
Yeah.
And all you and Sarah did was like kind of look back. Sarah's like, "Yeah, all right." I'm like, "Oh, just got up, and keep going." Right?
Yep.
And
that's what I said. I don't even remember you falling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then when we got down, and we're just, you know, we're looking at each other, especially on the tram down.
Yeah.
And you're just wiped, and I'm like, "Yeah, me too." Like, it's that same like feeling, but we did it.
Yep. And those are things that, you know, it goes back to like that story with my dad. Those are memories that you make for the rest of your life. And that's like my why is like, more than just getting these benefits for myself, is I love being a part of those moments for other people. Like that you're going to remember this for the rest of your life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think about when you talk about, again, I'm going to use my terms that I'm used to working on, is it regulate your internal system. When you see some of these kids that come out, like we're doing rock climbing now.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure last time your dad and I don't think we climbed.
Oh yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
My dad climbs like 1 out of 3 times. You
yeah.
know,
but I remember what we talked about and how we connected, and the stories we told, and how we watched those young kids get up there. And I remember running all the way up to the top of it and getting that one picture. I was so proud of myself for getting the picture, because that was that little boy's first time doing that.
Yep. They will remember forever.
And to show him that.
Yep.
And the people that were there, I mean, they're like, I'm almost afraid of how many people are going to show up this month.
I know,
but it'll be fun.
We're going to figure it out. But people are excited.
But nobody's in a bad mood.
No.
Like, we're sitting out there.
Everybody's excited. And one of the things that I think is unique to rock climbing is, like, it kind of gets you that canyon experience in like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Because especially with kids, right? And I do this with inner city group every year. I do this. I have my own camps, adventure camps. But the one thing that I think is so impactful for kids, and I know you probably heard me say this, is like they don't think they can do it. First off, like the first person to go, you got to find like that little go-getter wiry kid that's like probably had a Mountain Dew on the way here and he's just fired up. Because once they see somebody that can do it, all right, now maybe I can do it. And then they get to the crux or the hardest part of the climb and they're struggling, and then they want to come down. Right. And you kind of have this like back and forth with them of like, well, just you're so close, go a little bit further, just a couple more holds. They get there, couple more holds. All right, look how close you are. You're 2 feet away. You're so close. And they get there, and then I don't know, I'm not like a psychologist, but I'm trying to like get that into them. Like, man, I'm so proud of you. You didn't think you could do it, and you did it, right? Like, how does that feel? Like, I'm so proud of you, high-fiving, because like I remember that, like that's what my dad did for me, and I'm 34 and I remember it, and it's like it made an impact on it. So like if that little boy climbing for the first time when he wanted, how many times did he say he wanted to come down? Like,
right. Oh my goodness.
10,
And he got to the top, but his face when he got to the top, because I was at there to the top leaning over to see him like nervously smile.
Right.
And then you want to talk about trust with rock climbing. Right. Somebody on the other line.
And that's why I was like, who knows how many, because there's going to be a lot of people, because after the last one, we just did kind of like a little soft launch, and we had like 12 people. And so July 18th is going to be a busy day at the Crag. But,
so what's, you mentioned this earlier, what's one easy way to start bringing more nature into people's lives right now? Like, they don't have to do the 3-day. Ultimately, I think you should do it, but start light. We have small hikes.
Oh yeah.
Just go out in your yard. But
and that's what we do, is like once a week we do a hike together. But I think I would just encourage people, like, find a local park. All Trails is a great app. You don't have to pay for it. You can get that. You can find a trail that's, short trail. And doing it by yourself is kind of, I think, the next level. But even just doing it with your spouse at first, and just getting comfortable leaving your phone in the car and going for a walk together and being in the woods. And, I just think that's super, like, regulating, right? And then now for me, like, I just like to do it any chance I get. It's time I can be with the dogs and tire them out, and my wife's happy when the dogs are tired.
Well, it's just the small changes. I think people get overwhelmed. I mean, there've been all kind of ages. I mean, we had I think of the young man, I'm gonna give him a shout out here, but little Jet, I mean, dude did what do you do, 6 miles in Crocs?
Oh yeah, dude! On Brady's Run, which was like 40% grade right off the bat. Yeah, Wasn't that Brady's Run?
No, it was out.
Harmony Park or whatever.
You know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, but like, it didn't bother him at all. Like, his feet got muddy at one point in time. He took his we were all like in our shoes, our hiking shoes, or hiking
trekking
boots.
poles, backpacks, water bottles.
This little guy is 6 years old. He's out there with his dad.
Yep.
And what was cool about that, I forgot to tell you about this, but like the connection, right? He goes to church at the same church we do.
Yeah.
And was it 2 weeks ago? He had his dad try to send me a picture because they were out hiking again.
Oh,
and he wanted me to know. And so now that there's that, there's that community too. So what that does for your community, I'm thinking of the 3 young kids that were out with us last time. I mean, like, that's a community for them, and like, kids need that. And,
such an important community, and that's for kids, for adults. I think finding your community, like your kind of tribe, the people that you like, that's a great, such a good opportunity.
Well, and you heard my call, I think, before we came in here, and Big Tree called me. right before we came in the studio, he must have known we were going to talk about him a little bit. But yeah, he's like, I'll be there Saturday, right?
Let's go.
And I will tell you, he and I, even the walks we've taken, we don't even necessarily go hiking, but sometimes we just go to walk and we talk because we got a lot kind of about the same age.
Yep.
Some of the same issues. Jeez, I had to get that out.
Parenting, business.
Yeah, and it's like, I've gone over and just, hey, look, I need to get some things off my chest. We just walk around, but I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just the community piece. So it's just having that community, knowing that, and for he and I, like, we started a physical challenge with each other over 2,000 days ago.
Yeah, right? I was just gonna say that's why I can't get you guys to switch to the Garmin because you're 2,000 days into it.
But it's been cool because together we held each one another accountable. The community combined, we lost almost 100 pounds together.
Golly.
And what it's done for our kids too, like what it's done for our families. Our kids saw that they want to get like. They're getting out. They're doing it. They're staying healthy. They see, dad's doing it as well. So, a couple closing questions.
All right.
I'm going to wrap this around your best day. See how you do on this one.
All right, here we go.
What's your go-to way to create your best day yet when you're in nature?
Oh, to create it? Well, I think my best day yet in nature, being with people that I love, like, I think being with other people is very important to me. I'd love to have the dog there if that's possible. Yeah. If I could throw the hammock in and be able to set a hammock up. I just got a hammock. I love that thing.
I love that. Didn't expect that answer, but that's a great answer.
Yeah. And depending on what the challenge is, because I think there has to, for me, it's like I want to do something that, like, I'm proud of it afterwards. I could just take a 0 day somewhere and just like have a nice camp spot and just not even just stay here another day because it's so beautiful. I've done that. But I also like, if there's something that I like to have that little sense of like reward satisfaction, like how, when we finally got on the tram at, after Cactus the Clouds, and it's like we did it. You're just like,
can't wait to get
to
like
hotel. I can't. It hurts to walk. It hurts to step. Everything's tired. I'm exhausted, but like my cup is filled. You know what I mean? So I think being with people you love and doing something relatively hard and doing it outside. And bonus if it doesn't rain.
Yeah, that's a big bonus. Unless it's on Cactus the Clouds, we welcome the rain.
Yeah, if I have some somebody with me that's like a coffee snob that has one of those backcountry French presses, that's nice because I don't do that.
Right. So we had a couple of these trips coming up. If you want to, obviously check out our website, centerforvictory.com. All the Saturday hikes are there. The rock climbing's there.
Yep.
Anything like Caleb's doing, if you want something private, like he'll talk to you as well. But we do have our signature Glacier and Zion trips coming up.
Yep.
Glacier's September
24th to the 28th.
And Zion is the 1st of November. And, Zion has a special part for me just because that was my daughter's first trip with me and when she was 10. So it has a lot of special meaning there, and she's going back this year. So you'll, if you want to
5th to 9th.
Yeah. So if you want to come to that one, you will get to see and meet our Chief Joy Officer, and she'll probably be having fun because it brings back memories. The first time I took her, she was 10. We went back when she was 20. Yeah. And and we had a good time.
It is really cool. The 2 trips that we did. It's like, all right, what's like one of the most memorable like places that you love? Zion. What's like one of the most memorable places, like with your time with Faith, having that time with her, and like mine's Montana from having that time with my dad, and my dad's coming to Montana this year.
That's
so
right.
My mom and dad. Boy. So if you're interested, reach out. We'd we'd love to help you, even if it's not one of our trips, help you plan something or do a custom trip. That's we're good at it.
Yeah.
I like it. So
yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got inspired. We always, I think we could just continue to talk about this all the time. I know I can. We talk about it. I mean, we were at dinner Saturday night and we were talking about it. I heard Tammy, my wife, talking about it with somebody. Right. And it's just like, hey, when can you take us? Can you do this? And what about this? And I heard somebody ask you something. And I heard somebody ask your brother something. And I'm like, this is part of life. But for us, it's the spice of life. So come out, and if you have any kind of interest in doing that, come out and join us. We'd love to have you, even if you're just beginning. Don't feel bad. Like, just come out. So, and if you're above us, we'll find something that if you're in better shape than us, we'll find something to challenge you as well.
Absolutely.
We've got a list for next year of people that want to do that. So
absolutely.
It's all for today, folks. Thanks, Caleb. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Happy to be here. Love it.
As I said, if you want more information, you can check us out at centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet.